which is 50-50. Kitchen. Okay, thank you, Brian. In Indiana, I guess you can see where I am. It's not my kitchen, but I do eat in this room. And of course, I have my coffee. If you'd like to share what kind of coffee you're having, that would be great. And we've got an office in Alabama, and it's raining. All right. And bedroom in the UK, very romantic. Another bedroom, it must be. Well, in the UK, it's not early in the morning, it's probably afternoon, but must be early in Atlanta, in a study. All right, and Judith. Okay, so welcome, as I said, and I see the poll is changing. I'm going to keep it there. If you don't like it in front of you, you can just click on the X, close it, and it won't bother you. All right, so far it's the poll shows, and I'll share it with you as we go. It's not the end, but I'll share it anyways. Right now, it's there are a total of 13 votes, and it's equal. So do you flip your class? It's 50-50, but I'll keep that open for those who come in later. All right. So this is a class that I gave from a distance. The physical class was in the UK during lunch, and they were having a professional development or training session about teaching online, I believe, something or other. And I was the person presenting and trying to actually connect with them. And that's just one of my experiences in trying to engage learners, whether it's face-to-face or online, any way I can. And it doesn't always work because you don't get the sense of, the students, the learners. You don't really know what's happening with them. And that was the case in that particular class. 97, 98 people showed interest in joining this particular class, flipping the classroom, flip your class on WizIQ. I'm sure the numbers are even greater, and one of the reasons could be curiosity, which is a great reason. I'm not sure how many are going to join. So far, 15 have. Another topic of interest in what learners need. And this is where I come to my philosophy of, I guess, learning and teaching. This is something that Martin Heidegger said about teaching. Apparently, we all know if we're teachers, and I'm sure many of you are, if you could just give me a smiley, we'll get an indication of who's a teacher here, even though in today's world, I think that many are teachers informally. We all teach someone at some time or other, even as students, parents, in different capacities. We all teach. Apparently, teaching is more difficult than learning because, according to Martin Heidegger, what teaching calls for is to let learn. And I love this. I've encountered the idea of let learn. I don't know if you have. Let learn. It's always at the back of my mind, I guess, since I was in grade 1 when I wanted my teachers to let me learn, and they were driving me crazy by talking a lot. And maybe that's one of the things that teachers do that does not let others learn. This is the book. It's called Freedom to Learn. It was first by Carl Rodgers, and then the second edition or third edition, Jerome Freeberg joined. But I don't know if you're familiar with Carl Rodgers, but Carl Rodgers is a very, very special person. He died, but he was a psychologist. He was very passionate about learning, which is why he wrote the book, and he did a study on what students want. And he based his book on Martin Heidegger's ideas, what teaching means and what the role of a teacher is. So the real teacher, according to Martin Heidegger, is not to stop or detract students from learning. So the real teacher, in fact, lets nothing else be learned than learning. So what he's advocating is that we only teach to learn, which has been my philosophy for a long time. But I'm not new, and I'm sure that Martin Heidegger wasn't there when he said this. The teacher has to learn to let the students learn. There is never a place in it for the authority of the know-it-all or the authoritative sway of the official. And this is where I come in. As the facilitator of this particular classroom, it's kind of against my grain and maybe your grain too, because I'm supposedly the authority, which I'm not. Okay, so I want to get that out of the way. I am not the authority on flipped learning. In fact, I don't think I'm an authority at anything. For that matter, I'm sure that together we can be considered authority on a lot of things, but it's certainly not a one-man show or a one-woman show, as I keep saying. This is really about our collective knowledge, and it goes beyond this classroom, this particular. I wanted you to look at this, okay? Flipping your class, and a lot of my daughter did a flop on a beam. And I'll never forget it. She was about 10 years old. I think she wasn't even quite 10. And she did a double flip on the beam. We were so proud of her, but we had no idea what she was going through. We didn't know what it meant to be upside down for a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. The whole notion of seeing things from another angle. If you're not there, you don't really sense it. But flipping the classroom is not really about turning it upside down in any physical sense. It's not even making any changes. It's more about attitude. What I wanted you to look at was, what do you prefer? The left or the right? Okay, so if you could just write R or L. Okay, R or L. Which of the images or whatever reason you may have do you prefer, left or right? I wonder if, Brian, you prefer the left. But a lot of you are saying, oh, it seems right. Right seems to be winning out. In other words, you liked the flipped image. Is that correct? Would you say that you like the flipped image? Something about it that's appealing? Okay, we're getting both. Notice left and right. Okay, I wonder what students would, how they would feel about that, especially those who perhaps don't know how to read yet. Okay, so that's something to think about when we think about the flipped classroom. For the past couple of months, I've had the pleasure of having conversations. When I say conversation, I mean not a discussion where there are different points of views, but actually where there's one point of view and the person discusses that point of view without really sensing that there's any kind of controversy. It just is. And Sugata Mitra is one of these people. He talked a great deal. I don't know, a hole in the wall. That's right, Judith. If you were at the conversation that we had with Sugata Mitra, but it was just brilliant. It was brilliant to listen to a scientist talk about education and the research that he had done, because he felt, as an individual, he felt that he wanted to learn about the learner and what goes on with the learner. And he came up, of course, with the idea of the hole in the wall and the fact that we can actually teach ourselves. So there's no need for a teachers. Kids can teach themselves. I also had the pleasure last week of having a conversation with a person I'd never heard of by the name of Patrick Farenga, who talked about how he got involved in learning without schooling. And I expected him to say things like he had problems at school, he didn't enjoy school. And that's not how he got there. He got there by sheer coincidence. He just happened to be at the right place where he also met his wife. Talk about coincidences. And he happened to work at a reference room that did, and that's how he got involved in something. And he's a leading advocate today of homeschooling. It was very interesting to listen to what he had to say about his perspective and ideas. And as I was listening to all these people talk, and there's a common thread, and it's not just with people in a conversation, a public conversation, such as a conversation on WizIQ, but in people that I talk to on a daily basis, whether it's teachers, students, anybody, the man on the street, everybody seems to be saying the same thing. Anyone who's been to school, anyone who's, learned anything, will agree that we are individuals. And one size does not, the way I learn may not be what you want to learn. In other words, we have different preferences. We want to know different things about different things, and we should have right. We should have the right, and why not, to and yeah, okay, we've got some ideas here. But since this is not a discussion, and in a discussion, there are different points of views, and then everybody brings in their point of view and agree and disagree. In a conversation, we just listen and see if we can somehow um, see what the person is saying. Okay, so for now, you're welcome to add your ideas and how you feel about these things, because I think that's really important. But I'm just going to look at it. I'm not going to relate now, if you don't mind. Perhaps later on we'll have a chance to have a discussion. The idea, and I've been spreading this around, is to learn to teach. As a teacher, I want to be able to learn what my students want. And not only, but it's difficult. It's very, very difficult to teach to learn. And I'd like to stop and ask you if you can relate to this. Have you even tried? Because I'm sure many teachers don't have the time. At least that's what I get from my colleagues who say, "Are you kidding? There's just no way I would have time to teach them to learn. There's so much material to cover." So the question is, have you been teaching your students to learn? If you could just add a smiley or a thumbs up, thumbs down, have you attempted, or what classroom is going to be coming in here? Yeah, it's difficult. Benjamin says, I try to teach learning strategies throughout each semester. That's excellent. But again, where is the individual? Is everybody the same? Does one size fit all when it comes to learning? And I'm not talking about learning styles and multi-intelligences and so on. Yeah, we know that. But there are some sizes that do fit. There are sizes that fit certain people some of the time. So in flipping the classroom, we attempt as teachers to learn to teach. In other words, learn how to learn our students to learn. Okay, that's what the idea is about. So what is a flipped class? It's not flipping it physically. So what is a flipped class? And I shared a document with you that I'm going to reshare, a Google document. I see there's someone there now, at least there are two people there. I'm going to share it in the class. There's a document. I had put it before, which is kind of flipping things. I had added it before the class, not much before. But in a flipped classroom, you may want to do this in advance and get students' opinions and ideas uh, beforehand so that you can get a better of what your students need. Benjamin says allowing students to learn what they can on their own outside of class, so to allow them more dynamic learning inside of class. Yes, that's true. The time is not just there. Bill, thank you. I guess is to wait for tenure and then go. I like that, the fact that you say the time is not right. Go for it. Allowing students to learn on their own pace, facilitated learning. Yes, it is. It's a KWHL with a K. What do you know about the flipped classroom? What would you like to learn about it? Where are you going to get the information? Perhaps in this class, perhaps other places. Talk to people. And then what did you learn? Pace, not peace, but peace is good too. Brian says, I have an impossible chance to read text, much less. Good point, Brian. These are really very valid points, and I've had discussions with various lists. One is TESOL, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. One of the lists that I was made manager to add to the many things that I do, I asked the question, and a lot of ELL teachers, English language learning teachers, felt that it would be very difficult, and they saw so many difficulties in flipping the classroom. And I really appreciate that because I think that seeing what's impossible or difficult is really important. And I know that some teachers get very annoyed with me and others when we tell them, you can do it, let's do it, and they feel that it's really not the right time. And I think the timing is really important. Is it right for you? Can you work with a flipped classroom? What does it mean to you? Is it just, a trend? Obviously, it's not new, but is it something that is required of you? And how do you feel about that? And as Bill says, reading, if it's based on reading, but it doesn't have to be based on reading, it could be based on videos. It could be based on images. It could be based on different formats, not necessarily language reading, where you can get students connected. It could be based on audio, pure audio, no video at all, just sound. Oh, yes, yes, definitely, Benjamin. You don't need to necessarily create videos. One way, a very simple way, there's so many different ways. The idea is what you said before, Benjamin, getting students to think about, ponder, like the KWHL, and see where they stand, let the teacher where they then come back to the classroom and iron out certain things, or at least get an idea of what it's about. So the flipped classroom is what you want it to be, in fact. All right, this is an example of the flipped classroom, and I'm going to share a video with you that I found very energizing. And I would give it a chance. I would listen. I would try to be in a place where I wasn't fighting, where I would just, okay, let's see. Let's see how this works. And there are a lot of different examples on the internet. where people have used different systems and they seem to work. So I'm going to add YouTube. I hope you can hear. Just let me know.
I'm Aaron Sams, and I teach science here at Woodland Park High School. My ultimate goal, I guess, as a teacher is to help students become learners who can learn for themselves and by themselves. One of the problems that I was guilty of even prior to flipping my classroom around was the classroom was centered around me. I told them exactly what to learn, how to learn it, what assignments to do to learn it, and when to learn it, and how to prove to me that they learned it. I don't do that anymore. We changed the place in which content is delivered. Instead of standing in front of a class and delivering, here's how you do this type of problem, here's how this works, I deliver that direct instruction now asynchronously at home through these videos that we make with Camtasia Studio.
Times till whole.
Oh, we didn't do that last time.
The last step, they were already whole numbers. We had 1, 1, and 4. Here we don't have a whole number. So here's a few little tricks when you need to multiply by whole numbers. If one of your numbers ends in 0.5, you're going to multiply by 2.
Something 0.5 times it by 2.
Right.
Okay, write this down, guys.
Yes. If something ends in 0.3 or 0.33 or 0.66, you multiply by 3.
The kids come to class, they don't show up to learn new stuff, they show up to apply the things that they learned at home and to ask me questions about the things they learned at home. So now they could have my lesson, if you will, what I would normally have stood up and lectured to them in class with some added features. They get that at home, and then what they were expected to do for homework is now what they do in my class. Life is different for me because I no longer am the guy who stands up in the front of the classroom and just yaks at his students for an hour or however long the class is. Now I walk around the class and I help kids. I'm a tutor, I'm a guide, I'm the putter-outer of fires, whatever it happens to be. In my crazy chemistry class, I walk around and do that. I don't stand up front and teach under the kind of the traditional model. I'm Aaron Sams. I'm a teacher. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. And I love Camtasia Studio.
Benjamin asked key questions. Hi, Barbara. One of the key questions that need answers to, and that is, what if students don't have internet access? Where do they go? What do they do? Well, there are different places in the classroom. In other words, you can have a few computers in the classroom. Kids can bring their own devices, their own technology, mobiles, and so on. If there's, of course, wireless in the classroom, that helps in the school. In addition, that's in the classroom, and they can do things in the classroom. It doesn't have to be at home completely. You can have time off in the school for kids to do their homework. Okay, that's one suggestion in schools that have a population of kids who don't have the facilities that, say, better schools may have. Another response is, of course, the library, where they can write public libraries or school libraries and so on. So there are answers to these things. The idea is, and we'll get to that in a minute, and I'm sure you'll find answers yourself. Here is a teacher that done a lot of work, and these are teachers that are experimenting. They're relatively young, and they're trying things out. This teacher has some answers, and she'll explain why she started the flipped classroom. Okay, so let's listen to her.
I've been teaching math for the last 5 years, and this is why I flipped my classroom. This is what my classroom used to look like. I was teaching to the middle group of the class, the students that could follow along with what we were doing, and we were going through the content, while I had a group of higher level students not challenged, bored with the information, ready to move forward. And I had a struggling group of students that were not receiving enough effective remediation. They didn't have the basic content they needed to be working on the content we were currently covering, or they needed more help in order to be successful. This led to a 90% use of class time being spent on delivery and review of content. 90% of the time I was at the front of the classroom lecturing to a group of students and I wasn't meeting all of their needs. 10% of class time was actually spent on application, which led to, depending on students, to do the application needed to be successful. They had to go home or outside of class and work on applying the concepts that I was giving out in class. This constant battle of not reaching the needs of all students and feeling the need to differentiate for all of my learners allows teachers to feel overwhelmed and ineffective, because we see the need for differentiation, but there's just not enough time for effective differentiation.
Because we see the need for differentiation, but there's just not enough time.
This called for a drastic change in how we teach. This is where flipping the classroom comes in. Now the students outside of class preload the content. They get the information they're going to need for class. They can pause, rewind, and rewatch the videos as many times as they need to. They can post questions online to their classmates or to the teacher. And it's a self-paced program where they can be remediated by going back and reviewing former topics, or they can work ahead when they've already mastered a concept and are ready to look forward. They get the content here before class, so that when they come into class, my whole classroom has now shifted, where I'm at the center of the class, working between these differentiated groups, focused on different pieces of application. I can now work between each of these groups that are moving at their own pace. This has created a 90% use of class time spent on application of the content, and 10% of class time is spent on delivery of content, when I can answer questions that have been posted or take any other questions that have come up from applying the content. Now in my classroom, all students are engaged and challenged. I have time to work with each group, give them individualized time and instruction as they need, and I can actually work between each of the groups to provide effective differentiation for all my varied groups of learners. My struggling students, my middle group of learners, and I can now extend and expand on my higher level students' prior knowledge and challenge them in the classroom. To learn more about flipping the classroom, visit the Friday Institute's website.
Okay, the idea, it's not about videos. It's not about it. It's about getting the information in advance and interacting with the content. It's almost like learning online before you come to the class. It's kind of a blended learning format called the flipped your class. The idea is to get the information, work with it, or attempt to work with it, see how you do, come back to class, and then be divided according to whatever Barbara mentioned, not really groups, but according to your curiosity or needs. If we're not talking about content-based exam kind of situation. Okay, all this, I'll share the, okay, here I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation with you so you can get all this later on and go over it. Now, if this had been a, let's say, a flipped classroom, and I've done this in an online environment with WizIQ, where I created a flipped class format. I provided the information, the tasks before the class, and then we had the class. So for example, I could have added the PowerPoint presentation, which I, in the landing page, so that's the PowerPoint presentation. You go over it. You try to figure out what it's all about, or you may get questions, and then we get together and we discuss and see what information we need to fill in the gaps, if there are any gaps, according to our needs, and of course according to whatever the teachers and school want us to have. Flipping the classroom is about attitudes, and that's, I think, where we can be very, very smart, in the sense that we can come up with answers. All your questions so far, you've had a lot of questions there. What do I do if? What happens if? What if my students don't have the facilities at home? What if my students don't feel like doing it? How do I motivate them to work at home? Because my students are used to working in the classroom. They barely do that. But at least if I have a face-to-face contact with them, I can coax them, force them, coerce them, or whatever to do the work. So how do I get them motivated at home? All these questions, if you have the attitude to flip your class. And when I say the attitude to flip your class, I mean the attitude that you want to teach your students how to learn. Okay, and that's where it starts off. Are you at a place that you feel that, just as Martin Heidegger mentioned and Carl Rodgers mentioned, that learning and teaching are one and the same, and the teacher's role is to learn the students how to learn and not teach them how to learn, but have them learn. If that's your attitude, then you'll find a way. So what is your attitude to teaching? And you might want to write it down for yourself. You know, what is my attitude? But I'm sure you must have figured it out by now. Yeah, you know what, Benjamin? I like that word cultural shift. I like that because maybe it is cultural, but it certainly may be a shift for many. And the question is, do they want to? If you don't want to flip your class, and there's no way that you're going to do it because you don't have the attitude for this and you don't believe in teaching to learn. You believe in something else. Then it might not be for you. Okay, and why force it? So you might want to ask yourself, what am I doing? You know, why am I trying to go with something that is not part of me? Okay, would you like your students to do that? Would you like them to do something that they don't really feel connected to? Okay, so we have to think about what works for us and not run and change ourselves. You know, maybe it's not the right time, as someone mentioned. And learning, what is your attitude to learning? Yes, Bonnie, that's right. Yeah, we should. We have to look at ourselves and not, you know, not force ourselves to accept things, but to see if we come up with lots of excuses, you know, this will not work, this will not. Why? You know, what is behind all that? What are we fighting? Okay, so learning about our attitudes towards teaching and learning is really, really important. And our beliefs about control. I think this is key, at least in my life. You know, I don't like to be controlled. I don't know if anybody does, but maybe there are people who like to be controlled. And if I ask you, do you like to be controlled? You know, are you going to say yes because you do? Are you going to say no because you don't think it's the right thing to say? But what is your belief about control? How many people like to be controlled? I don't know. Let me ask my wife. That's good, Brian. Yeah, I keep thinking about that too. Yes, are women controllers? You know, there are those who like to control. It's like the followers and the leaders. You know, how many of us, you know, maybe there are some who like to be controlled, or at least they get used to it. Next question is conformist. Are you a conform? Do you believe in conforming? Because a lot of the school system is about conforming. Let's face it. You know, so on the one hand, the school is asking us to flip our classrooms. Many schools ask us to use technology to do this and that. And on the other hand, the school is very traditional and they want everybody to conform. So how can you really innovate and teach to learn if you're a conformist? Right, not my way or the highway. Right, so this is something that you should think about. How do you feel about, you know, being a conformist or not being a conformist? And the next stage, of course, is leader. Are you a leader or a follower? Do you like to lead or follow? And then what do you think about leaders? what is your attitude to leaders? So if I ask you, what is your attitude to your political leader, I'm sure you could give me an emotion here. Your attitude to your, here's my attitude to my political leader. Okay, so, if you could give an image or any kind of, how do you feel about them? Okay, so, oh, I see any happy faces about leaders. Okay, and then you public school or higher education, K-12. How do you feel about the people at the top? And how do you feel about those who do not conform? And do you believe in top down, things coming from the top and you're at the bottom and you're happy with that, or at least you're accepting, or bottom up? Where do you stand? Baby steps. Okay. Benjamin says top down and bottom up. So you're somewhere in the middle. You're very balanced. Okay. The question is, how fast can we go if we take one step forward and one step back? One step forward, one step back. Okay, that's what I think of when I think of top down and bottom up at the same time. Okay, it's kind of difficult. Top down, it takes both. Yeah, it takes both means that we don't go anywhere. You need friction. A little bit of friction helps you move. Can you imagine the world of friction? Outer space, no friction. I always remind my students of the importance of physics in the English classroom, and friction is one of it. We need friction, okay, or there's no movement. The question, of course, is, would you flip your class? Now that you've heard a little bit, okay, would you flip your class? That's right, Brian, but there's no movement. You can move without friction, physically, I mean. So what's the verdict? Would you flip your class? And of course, the question, let me go back to the poll. The poll, okay, let's see. The poll so far 19 and 55% say no. They do not flip their classrooms, which means that 40%, I don't know how that works out, 40% do. So we've got a few people that do flip their classes. So I presume those that say they would means they don't. Ah, that's a question, Patty. Is flipping an all or nothing strategy? Never. Yeah, I like that question because it's a safe question, you know. And the next one, of course, is how would you flip your class? How would you flip your class? Okay, Patty, and that's for you. Okay, or for anyone who doesn't want to go all the way. I mean, you have a choice. You can try things out, as someone mentioned, in baby steps and see how it works, how you feel, how your students react. Because don't forget that students are used to certain ways, and it's not that easy for them either to, find that their classes have been flipped. So it's a good thing to do things, step by step and not all at once. I wanted to share, some of you asked, in poor areas, what do you do? This is about a man, a principal, who flipped his classroom in a school located outside of Detroit. The school is in a poor, disadvantaged high school. And just as numbers here, 75% of their 570 student body qualify for free or reduced lunch program, which means a lot in the United States. I know that some of you are not from the States. In any case, it was a very poor school with poor facilities, and he decided to flip the whole school. He flipped an entire school. Now, I'm going to ask you, would you like that? Would you like it to be top down, where the principal decides, I'm going to go? And then, you know, would this be reassuring to have a principal come and dictate a flipped school so that everybody would be flipping their class? And I'm going to share the link with you. He has some great ideas for those who are interested in how to do it. Oh, that's a good question, Patty. Did the teachers revolt? Well, you know, teachers, I don't know where teachers revolt unless they have a union. Okay, teachers are good conformists, I would say. Otherwise, they wouldn't stick to it. Passive resistance, yes, very passive, generally, right? Among the teachers, but we do what we're told. And that's what we expect our students to do. But in any case, you might want to look at that and see if you can get some ideas, or at least learn about this brave, as someone mentioned, principle. I'd like to share this, and I'm going to share it with you, because I think that this man, the passionate way that he describes the need for teachers and organizations, schools, to flip their classes is just amazing. I see that I'm not going to be able to share it from my Safari. Yeah, it looks like I'll need to use Firefox in order to do that. I guess my Java, I'm on a Mac, and a Safari, my Java is probably not up to date. In any case, let me share the link with you so you can follow up on that. Here we go. The man's name is Dr. Lodge McCammon. He's the project director of this, and I can have you listen to it, but I don't think that that's going to be very effective. He's very, very passionate about the idea that we should be flipping. Okay, and here we go. Trailblazer. That sounds good, Bill. He's got great ideas, and he will help you. He will help you if you're into the flipping your classroom. There are a lot of people out there who would be willing to help, and will certainly be the person to help you. So you might want to look that up and see if connecting with FIZ, the Friday Institute for Educational Innovation, will help you do it. He's got a flipped classroom training program. I didn't check if it costs money, but he has great ideas. Okay, that's Dr. Lodge. Great ideas on how to do it, and different ways to help you manage it. My question is, do you really need help? Okay, if you want to flip your classroom, if you want to provide your students with information before the actual class time, whether it's a fully online class or a face-to-face class, is that the way you want to go? Okay, and I'm putting out the question to you. Is that the way you want to go? Okay, if you can give me a thumbs up. Do you want, yes, Dr. Lodge. Bill? Did I? Yes. Because I think if this is the way you want to go, you will find answers to your questions. In other words, I think that you are clever enough to find ways, because whatever somebody tells you, do this, do that, it's not going to work for your particular class. But if you really want to do something innovative, then you'll find answers on how to do it. Where's the thumbs up, Terry? You go into the smiley just at the bottom of the chat box. There's a little smiley. You click on the smiley, and you'll have a pop-up of a variety of smileys. There's one, and then you can do that. Terry, you got it. Was it Terry? Yes. Okay. I think it's a lot of fun. I love playing around with toys. So I guess I never outgrew the smileys. Stars. Thank you, Patty. Again, I'm back to Carl Rodgers as I end this part of the my part of the discussion. Not discussion. I hope it's a conversation. The primary task of the teacher is to permit the student to learn, to feed on, her own or his own curiosity. To absorb facts is of only slight value in the present, and usually of even less value in the future. And I find this so true in how I view education. And I'm wondering, if this fits in with your philosophy, ideas about learning and education. There's the link to Freedom to Learn. As I said, it's a great, and I think that it was written by a psychologist. He conducted a study, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the study. And I'm always amazed, and I learned so much from people who are not educators. For example, Sugata Mitra is a scientist. Nikhi Goyal is a student. And Farenga is not an educator. There's so much, at the beginning I thought, well, how could I listen to someone who's not an educator? What are they basing their ideas on? But slowly I found that by listening and getting over the fact that people are talking about my profession who are not even in the profession, that I gained quite a bit. Okay, so give everyone a chance and listen and learn from what others have to say. Carl Rodgers conducted a study in the early 90s. He went for about 6 months. He traveled around the United States asking students what they want from different ages, mainly higher education. And these are some of the answers he got. And I'm wondering whether you are surprised by any of these answers. And I'll let you speak through the microphone and add your comments in the chat box. The first thing that he wrote was trusted. Students want to be trusted at any age. They want to be respected. They want to feel part of a family. Yes, they want to feel that school is like a family. They want their teachers to be helpers. They want to be given opportunities to be responsible, to be given responsibility. Let them be independent learners. Let them take the responsibility of their learning. They want freedom and not a license. They want to learn for the sake of learning. And that's why the book is called To Learn. And they don't want to do it for a license or for a document, a piece of paper, an exam. They just want the freedom to learn. They want teachers to help them succeed and not fail. And when I first read this, I thought, what do you mean every teacher wants their students to succeed? Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the profession. But sometimes students misinterpret a teacher's behavior, and I include myself, of course, and they feel that we are not helping them succeed. We are helping them fail. That's how they feel. And we get from them because it's how they feel. So they want to feel that we are there to help them succeed and not fail. Something to think about. And the final answer, response to the list is to have choices. Students want to have choices. All right, so to hear from you, we've got about, oh my, the time flies. We've got about 8. So raise your hand. I'll pass on the mic to you so we can hear from you, or you can add your comments in the chat box. I hope that you filled in the form. I see a lot of people out there, the Google Doc. Okay. And I hope you'll be able to continue with that. This is the first of such a conversation where we can together perhaps find ways of moving forward. So let's say Bruce says, I wish the traditional undergrad student really wanted to learn and had curiosity. Now that's very interesting that you're saying that, because I've heard that from a lot of teachers who teach in the undergrad. I didn't hear it much in the grad or post-grad program, so I can appreciate that. Terry says, in today's economy, a lot of students do want to earn a license. I like that. Learn a license. That's right. And if they could have it for pay, they'd pay for it too. It doesn't matter. You don't really need to learn. You just want to learn for the license. That's definitely true. And I'm sure many of us have been accused of wasting students' times. You know, don't waste my time. I just want to get my degree. Let me do the exam and forget the projects. Nothing. Since not one of my students do not need my classes to their degree, 95% of what they, I'm sorry, I missed that. 90% of what they learn. Not even what they learn. I keep missed that again. There's only human resources, workplace is changing. Lots of ideas, okay, in reaction to this. And again, we're back to who's going to change things. Is it going to be bottom up or top down? Because we're at the bottom with our students, or maybe lower than our students. The top down is what the principal did. So you like that, Osier? Okay, that's the question. Okay, are we going to conform? Remember the attitudes that I asked before. Are we going to conform? What is our attitudes? Okay, I'll go back to that. Okay, really important, because that is going to be react, teaching and learning. And that's our responsibility. Our beliefs and attitudes and about changes, innovations, and whether it's top down or bottom up, what are we doing? What do we expect others to do is what it's all about when it comes to making changes. And I'm not evaluating, I'm just stating things as they are. Sylviana says, Sylviane, it is frustrating when students don't work through the material that you set for them. And this could happen in the flipped classroom. They skip it. This is especially these with, Asperger's students, that's right, who feel they know what you were, yeah, That's a good example. The difference of Asperger, because there are, one as person is completely different from the next. Whereas I found my students only look at my classes since they needed one more math class for their degrees. Yep. So again, at the bottom-up approach alone is unlikely to work at a school level. So leave the school. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, lots of answers, lots of reactions. The sad truth, Brian, I found, yes, thing with a lot of courses at the undergrad level where students have to pass them to go on to whatever is next. Oh, Brian says the school is organized top down and I teach the other way. So you're flipping. You flip the top down to bottom up. That's a kind of flip. All right, my final question, okay, before the session ends, is what are you going to do? How would you flip your class if you wanted to? Okay, how would you flip your class? Would you do it the traditional way with videos? Would you not try it because you know your students? Where do you stand when it comes to the flipped class? Right. So we're back to the organization. All right, something to think about, which is what this session was about. A chance for you to think and figure out what you're going to flip your classroom or not, and how you're going to do it, whether you are a person who believes that we teach to learn and you're willing to flip, or whether you, for reasons that are perhaps organizational, are going to conform and go on with the system. So thank you. Thank you very much. And feel free to add comments to the Google document I added. And I suggest you copy the chat. There's a lot of information here that you can take with you. So there's a copy chat. Just let me know if you see it. Copy chat. Okay, it's just up there. List, and just before the chat box begins, just above the chats, you'll see copy chat. So I suggest you copy that, and I wish you the best, and that you will stay passionate about learning and continue teaching, and have fun, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just make sure that you copy the chat before I close the classroom, before it ends. Okay, there are a few seconds left. Thank you for joining. None of these sessions would be the same without you. And your students, your classes would not be the same with you and your students. Bye-bye.